That's nice.
Stop.
That's wonderful.
That's
You
winter.
deserve it. You deserve it.
That's so awesome.
I know you deserve it.
I love it.
You're on mute.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Wild Wednesday Bible study. We're so grateful that you are joining us with us tonight. I'm your host, Dr. Deborah Pulley, the spiritual leader of today's church. And my co-host this evening is Minister Gina Folk, one of our ministers of teaching. So before we prepare to dig deeper into Sunday's message, we're going to take a moment to center ourselves in the presence of God and to know the truth that there is no waste in God's kingdom, that there is no waste of time, that there is no waste of money, that there is no waste of energy, that there is only increase, abundance, overflow, and more than enough. And so at this conscious moment, we let go of poverty. We let go of scarcity. We let go of lack. We let go of limitation. We release any feeling of not being enough, of not having enough. And we embrace today the lessons and the blessings from every experience. And we align our minds with divine mind, knowing that I and the Father are one. It is in the name and through the power and in the consciousness, the awareness of Christ Jesus that lives inside of each and every one of us, that it is so, and so it is, and so we let it be. Amen and amen. Good evening again, and thank you so much for being a part of our collective consciousness prayer that we had earlier at 6:30, led by Minister Cheryl Allen Golden. Those views keep moving up, and up. As I saw before the prayer closed, we already had 30 views from 7 or 8 views. So it is definitely moving, and we are expanding the collective consciousness of our prayer. So tonight, Gina, you're going to start with the exercise sharing.
Well, yes, and I desire to change the order just a little bit tonight for several reasons, and I'll tell you why. So first, I do desire to let anyone share. Do you have any final insights, words, questions, anything on tithing, being a tither, or the act of tithing? Anybody got anything to share from that? We all feeling good? I will say that I'm playing a new game. When it comes to giving and tithing. I'm playing the game of giving at the level that I desire to achieve. And so I'll keep you posted, all of you, on how that game is going to work out. I call it a game because it's important in my life. One of my core values is fun. So if it's not fun, I'm not going to do it. So I'm playing that
I'm going
game.
to take you one and raise you one. I'm playing the game with you.
Awesome.
I'm sowing where I desire to go. So yes, I'm joining you in the fun.
So anybody else that wants to join us, we're going to have a tithing game going on, and we can all share what that feels like. Hey, Robin's up for it. So anyway, so that's kind of where we're heading. What I'd like to do tonight, because Orchestrator, the O in Victorious, this is brand new for us. For anyone that's taken this course before, we had different O's. This year, it came to me in one of my meditations to orchestrate. The word orchestrate came to me. And so before we dive into the content, because it's new, I would like you all to share what your insights were from any of the messages on Sunday about being, orchestrating, about the action of orchestrate. Because before I dive into the content, I just feel like it's important to hear what you got, because I hear from the leadership meeting that we had on, what was it, Dr. Pulley, last night, I guess. that you've gotten a lot of feedback on some of the messages. And so I thought it would be really cool to just let everybody share what they got first, and then we'll come back and get into the content. I just think it's important for people to share. So because it's so new, this is not something we've ever done before. So does anybody have, just from any of the Sunday messages, what were some of your insights just on the topic orchestrate in general? Anybody have anything to share?
I loved it. The musician in me just loves the idea of the word of orchestrate and what that means to bring, for lack of better words, to bring the pieces together. And you know, when I think about co-creating and orchestrating my life, like it really is bringing the instruments together to work in harmony. I already have all the tools, like I have all the instruments I need. I have to decide how those instruments are going to work together in my life. So I was really excited on all three of the sermons.
Was there anything that particularly stuck out for you in one of them that you remember? And you may, as we start to go through some of the content, maybe it'll come up, but I just didn't know if there was anything top of mind.
Not right off the top of my mind, but I just
Yep.
really resonated with the whole idea of orchestrating
Yep.
and what that word means.
Yeah, awesome. Anyone else? Yes, Colette.
I loved all three messages. I really did. But one thing that really stuck out for me was about the investment, whether it's coach, business class, or first class. And when Dr. Pulley said, the greater the investment, the smoother the ride. And different investments give us different experiences. That really meant a lot to me.
Yes, that's awesome. Because so often that hit me as well, Colette, because so often sometimes I find myself not putting that investment in, and then me wondering why I didn't get the results. Well, hello? Because you didn't realize that investment wasn't what was necessary to bring the result that I was desiring. And so that just gave me a whole different viewpoint. Absolutely. Shepherd Mother.
I like the idea of staying in the flow of it, being the conductor and having to have control of the baton to the point that no one could interfere, and that I don't have to stop and check on how I'm doing, that I don't need anyone else's opinion of where I am in that flow. As long as I am in the flow and I'm feeling good about it, it really doesn't matter. And I don't have to check myself. I love not having to check myself.
Yes.
With other people.
With other people. I was going to say, you check yourself as
with other people.
Citizens, we check ourselves all the time.
Yes.
We understand that part. But other people, you don't have to check with other people or
don't
meet
need
their
that,
check
okay.
marks. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Robin.
I was really moved by it. The 10:30 service. I have not seen the 2 yet. So the 10:30 service, it just, and anybody who received a letter from me today regarding the women's ministry, I really wove in how I was moved and how I can apply this kind of lens of the symphony of life. So it just felt like I am the conductor and all parts of my life. It's all the relationships in my life. They all play a different sound. Like if one relationship is like got the beat of the drum, and then over here, it's not supposed to be a drum. It's supposed to be a horn, and they work together, and to not expect the horn to sound like a drum, and how when I pulled back and I saw all the relationships and all the different aspects of my life, I thought, now that's a symphony. That is a really full flavored, beautiful experience of life, that it's not just one. There's just a variety of things. And sometimes, I also was having an experience with my son last night, and we were getting into something, and I was like, oh, we're building to the cacophony, and it's like, how do we just pause? Because the music can come down again, where we can both just keep tempo. So I've been just this whole analogy has just taken over my life for the last 2 days. That's
That's
it.
beautiful. That's awesome. I love that. Patty, were you going to share something?
Yeah, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
I think I really identified more with and related to the conductor of the train.
Mm.
With the different tasks, like, you know, you're kind of in charge of like where the train's going, and then you're checking on other people. So there were, and I forget the wording about the service, but I really, there were 3 different tasks, like I'm collecting tickets or making sure everybody's okay, and still, you know, taking care of myself and my journey.
Yes.
I could really relate to the conductor on the train more than the orchestra.
Yeah, and I love it that, you know, this is just another example of a word has so many different ways to represent itself, so many different metaphors that we can use in life to grow from and learn from. So that's amazing. Anyone else have any just general insights, things that made a shift in you from any of the Sunday messages? We're going to dig into them in more detail. I just desired to get that up front because there'll be a little bit of content that's new coming in because I love how Spirit works. Anybody else have anything to share?
2 things,
Yes.
very quickly. I remembered now. I had to separate the services because on Sunday they all meld together for me. The sermon topic at 10:30. I think this is at 10:30. Yes. When Dr. Pulley was talking about the conductor, maybe this was at the 2 o'clock.
The conductor. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
The conductor with the baton.
Conductors. Yep.
I think it's either at the 10:30 or the 2. Either way, but the metaphor of the conductor turning his back to the audience, like that really resonated with me, because I've had challenges in the past of like worrying about the outer perspective and instead of worrying about like my task of orchestrating my own life and giving the attention and my talents and all these things to my orchestra instead of worrying about the audience. The audience is just there to enjoy it. I really love that, and then I really resonated with the perspectives of the audience, the on stage perspective, and the backstage perspective, or the set perspective, and like what you see and do in those different vantage points in this space. I just thought that was, I was like poof. So really, really great. I could just talk about this subject all day.
Well, you get more time as we go through, because I said we're going to go into it in more detail as we go along. Anyone else? Dr. Pulley, what are some general comments you've gotten? Because I know you said you've gotten a lot of really amazing feedback.
People were saying how they could really feel it.
Mm-hmm.
Like people were saying they were getting goosebumps and chills, and people were saying that it was such a picture that was painted, that they really felt like they were at a performance of the symphony orchestra, that they felt like they were really on the train, that people really connected, their senses connected with the message more than just hearing it, that they could see it and that they were feeling it.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, I love that part. It was very cool. And it's only going to get, and next week, you know, because this is 2 parts, this coming week, I'm sure is going to be similar to what you were talking about, Patrick, how it's, you know, we got all the instruments. Now it's about how do we orchestrate them and bring them all together to make it sound beautiful, and what does that look like? And so that's just going to keep growing. So anybody else have anything they want to share? So I desire to share with you guys. I'm going to share the lesson for tonight, and I love how Spirit works. So interestingly enough, and you guys that have been around me know that anytime I have a word, what comes to my mind, I process it. And so just like Dr. Pulley did with the messages, I immediately went to orchestrate, and particularly in this case, more so, I didn't even think about the train conductor, which is really awesome. So that was really fantastic. I was thinking more about the symphony and some of the stuff we've been talking about. And as I was putting the content together, I was like, orchestrator. I just want to see what the dictionary says orchestrator is, right? So catch this, guys. This just about blew my mind. So maybe it'll just be me that blew my mind, but watch this. So this is the quote unquote official definition of an orchestrator. And Patrick, you may know this just because of your experience in theater, but I've never seen it this way, right? So an orchestrator is called to transpose a song from one instrument or voice to another. So it's taking something and transforming it or putting into some other shape or form. An orchestrator is similar to that of an arranger. So the one that actually puts the music together, creates it to begin with. And rather than reinventing, catch this, guys, this about, I went, pew! Rather than reinventing the original composition, maintains the writer's creative vision by making as few drastic changes as possible. So what does that mean? Who is the orchestrator ultimately of us? That is God. That making as few drastic changes as possible aligns to me in the kingdom speak of we're perfect, whole, and complete as we are. We're just shifting and getting connected back with that. The orchestrator determines the voice, instrument, harmonic structure, rhythm, tempo, and tone balance to achieve the desired effect. So that's kind of some of what you were talking about a little bit, Patrick, how it's up to the orchestrator to put all those pieces together to make it sound harmonious. An orchestrator is someone who effectively transforms the vision of the innovator into reality. Hello. It's like, oh my gosh, this is just kingdom. Like when we're talking about co-creating with God, every time I heard the word innovator or original writer, I'm thinking that's God. And that's, the spirit inside of us. That's that God spirit seed inside of us. The orchestrator spreads the solution created by the innovator, continually strategizing how to best reach and work with people. So that's in respect to people that orchestrate movements. They would be called orchestrators, meaning like social movements. So, and then they plan and lead the strategy for change adoption. So I was just like on Sunday when I was creating this lesson, I was just like, oh, this is amazing. So, and then on top of that, it was additional to add the stuff that we were hearing on Sunday. So I'm going to stop for a moment. Dr. Pulley, what do you feel about that definition of orchestrator as it is?
It brought me in mind of the kingdom principle of divine purpose. There is a divine purpose for my life, and I cannot transition from this dimension of life, abundant life, to the next dimension of life, eternal life, until that purpose is fulfilled. So the original composition is the divine purpose. And we are living out that divine purpose that we agreed to, that we said that we would fulfill when we took on these human forms. So that's what came to me when you were reading that definition, is that I'm not trying to reinvent a composition, but I am aligning myself with my divine purpose. And so that's what came to me.
Anybody else? I would love to hear what you think about that definition, because maybe you didn't have as many aha moments as I did when I was creating it, but I was just like diamonds dropping every second when I was reading some of that stuff. Anybody else have any feedback?
Robin here.
Yes.
I've always said for I don't know how long, well before today's church and the kingdom teachings, I always call God the divine choreographer. I would joke earlier days, I'd say everybody thinks Bob Fosse is like the best choreographer. It's the divine choreography of life. And that would go for me for divine placement. And so this is similar to that. Kind of for me, it's like a divine placement. Like we are all, again, I can't get away from the imaging. So the choreographer to me was like in the body and the way we move and we bump into people. And this is more like the way that the music plays as we dance together or something. Okay, I'm done.
No, it's great. Anybody else have any insights or aha moments as I was kind of reading some of that, or you're reading through it yourself, on what that definition of an orchestrator is? Awesome. So you can kind of work with that this week. And then we know what we learned, and that's what the messages on Sunday were largely about. And it's really about a conductor orchestrates, right? So a conductor, so we have, in my mind, there are two synergistic roles to some degree. So there is actually a role called orchestrator, and we know a conductor is an orchestrator because they're orchestrating. And so a conductor orchestrates by unifying the performers. I see that as us unifying and aligning all aspects of our soul into the spirit with the spirit. The conductor orchestrates by setting the tempo, executing clear preparations and beats. They listen critically and shape the sound. I think that's the listening to God, what God's saying, and then shape the sound of our lives the way we choose for it to be, and controlling the interpretation and pacing. So those are just some other definitions of what a conductor does. If we look at it from a sheer perspective of definition. But then, of course, Dr. Pulley takes it to a whole new level with the way that he presents messages. And now we'll deep dive into the Sunday messages. And as we're going through this, I desire for anybody that has any additional insights that come through this, because I just put some of the interpretations that I had down listening to the message and tying the conductor imagery into an orchestrator imagery. And so from the 9 o'clock service around All Aboard, and I loved this one, Patty, as well, because for me, one of my favorite movies, especially at Christmas time, is Polar Express. So all I can think about is Tom Hanks saying all aboard. And so I thought it was beautiful because it's been a long time since I've ridden a train, like a real train. I think my parents put me on one when I was in 4th grade, when it was still safe to put kids on planes of trains by themselves, I guess. So it's been a long time. And so it was really beautiful for me, Dr. Pulley, to hear you talking about a train experience, because I could visualize what that was like. But I could say that I would not have remembered that that's what a train conductor did. So they're there to check the itinerary and orchestrate your itinerary, making sure that you're heading to the right place, that you're on the right train. And so when you're speaking, what I could hear you saying is that the direction is good, always good. So as a conductor, you're orchestrating your itinerary. What I heard was they're directing you to the land of the good and plenty. And then I added overflowing.
Yes.
And I thought of those, and I thought of the candies, right? Good and plenty candies. And then I was just like, oh, and overflowing. So we need to create a candy that's good and plenty and overflowing. Because it is, that land of the good is not just good, it's plenty and overflowing. And so I loved that as the conductor, as the orchestrator of our life, we are, as that playing that role of that conductor, we are directing ourselves always to the good. Does anybody have any feedback on that? Any insights that you got from that particular one, or Dr. Pulley, anything else to share on that piece?
Sometimes the ride, and it brought me back to moving here to Tampa Bay, and I was on the auto train. And so it's been 6 years that I moved here, and it just encouraged me to know that no matter how bumpy the ride might seem, that I am going in one direction, which is good, and that everything is working together for my good. That was very comforting for me, and I hope that it was comforting to others, that there's one itinerary, which is good. There's one destination that we're all going to end up, and that is good.
No matter how many stops or how many detours or how many pauses that you may have to take, how many crossroads you may have to go through, it's all
how many people have to get off?
How many people have to get off? Yes. How many people have to get on and join you?
You still
Yes.
get there.
Yeah.
You're still going to get there.
Going to the good.
I think what I liked the most about that is the conductor having the desire to get the feedback of, is there something else I can do to make it even better?
Yes.
That resonated with me because it's always a part of my desire for me to do better and for everybody else to do better, and to be available to be the support or a resource to make that happen.
Yes. Yes. Yes, absolutely.
No matter how much fun you're having, it can be funner.
Can be funner. Just got to look at it in a different way.
That's right.
That's my whole, yes. Yes. I resonate with that a lot. And then
And
go ahead.
I desired to do a little bit, Gina, with the consciousness that fights that. That there's a part of us that says, if it's not broke,
Don't
don't
fix it.
Don't
fix it.
fix it.
Just had that conversation with somebody today, and
You
that's
know,
like,
that's an underlying limiting belief that I don't want to make any waves. If it's not broke, let's not fix it. Let's just keep it the way it is.
Leave well enough alone.
Leave well enough alone. And those are some of the ideas, the erroneous beliefs, the faulty perceptions, the limiting beliefs that keep us stuck in good and not get to our better. Because, leave well enough alone. And I was saying, even from our retreat on Saturday, that I love today's church. I think today's church is a good church, but it can be even better. And that's the consciousness of our lives. I'm living a good life. I love my life, but it can get better. It doesn't have to be broke. It doesn't have to be something wrong with it for it to be better.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And just like, Dr. Pulley, I just had this hit, and I'd like you to talk about this a little bit, because I know you've talked about this in other classes, and I think it's probably in some of our mock classes. So when it comes to the itinerary, there are some faith traditions that believe in a predestination, right? That is fixed and that we can't do anything with, to some degree, right? And so what was coming up as you were talking about the limiting beliefs around improvements, I wonder if there's some limiting beliefs around that everything is good, the land of good and plenty, right? Because you can hear sometimes that people might have some limiting beliefs that, because we know if it doesn't feel good, it's still for our good, right? But sometimes I've heard, and maybe it's just in my family, that, well, that's just God's plan. It's just the way it's supposed to be. And it's like a suffering kind of consciousness, error thinking, versus, oh, wait, that is part of God's plan. And what's the good out of it? So can you talk a little bit more about that?
So it starts with the idea of who is your God, And so my God is the everywhere evenly present spirit of absolute good. That's who my God is. So if your God is good and evil, or if you got two gods, the good God, Jehovah, and the bad God, the devil, or if your God is good and evil, then I can see that concern, because it's starting with your God image. And if your God is anything other than good, or if you got two powers working in your life, then I can see that conflict. But if you see God as the everywhere evenly present spirit of absolute good, then there can only be one destination, which is good. And that destination has been predetermined, that it's good. I may not know all the details of how things are going to happen, but I'm not in this fear of, oh my God, God's going to get me. Oh my God, waiting for the shoe to drop. Oh my God, waiting for the bottom to fall out. Even if I don't know all the details, even if they're not all clear to me, I can rest that I have an itinerary and my ticket says good.
Good.
And very good. And it's going to keep getting better. But that starts with how you see God. And if people see God in any other way than absolute good, then it can produce that fear and that unsettlingness of, well, God wants me to suffer. God wants me to be in pain. And God made me sick so I could, be still and hear his voice. And God made me poor so I could appreciate and be, but that's their God image. So if you start with that, then all that other stuff comes along with it.
Okay, now I know why Spirit asked me to ask you that question. Do you know what imagery just came up for me as you were sharing that? And it happens to be a train imagery. So has everybody seen the Polar Express? Okay, if you haven't seen it, so the Polar Express is a train that's heading to the North Pole to see Santa, right? And there's this young boy that lives in a home that is it's a poor home in quotation marks, right? And so the train comes by, stops at his house. the conductor calls, all aboard. The little boy comes out of his house. He comes out and the conductor says, well, jump on board. And he's like, no, where are you going? The North Pole. No, because Santa's never given him Christmas before. He's never had Christmas before. So he thinks he doesn't deserve the good that's going to the North Pole. He doesn't believe in the magic of Santa, right? So that imagery came up because that's what he just waited. He didn't decide. He chose at that moment not to get on the train. And then at some point he decided, and he started running after it and he got on it. But he still, the whole time he was on the train, he was still sitting in the back thinking he didn't deserve the good, even though the train was going to the good. The train was going to the North Pole where they were all going to get Santa's blessings or whatever, right? So it's just like, I feel like sometimes that's what it is. Like even as students of truth, like we know that it's good, but sometimes we're like, ooh, is it really good? I don't know. Let me think about this. Am I really going to get on that train? Do I really believe I deserve it? Do I really believe because of some other circumstances or something that's happened in the past that this train is really going to the good? So it just made me think of that little boy sitting there and, the whole agony of him being on the train the whole time. And he was back there wondering the whole time, did he deserve it? Until finally at the end, he realized he did. So that was the imagery that came up for me.
And I've been working with that since early this morning with the daily download, that I was able to really get to why people feel they don't deserve it. And one of the reasons is they feel like they have wasted time, wasted money, wasted energy. So I don't deserve it because I haven't been a good steward. I have wasted so much. So I don't really deserve the good. And so once we let go of this idea of waste and embrace that everything is a lesson and a blessing, then we can see ourselves worthy. We can see ourselves deserving it and seeing ourselves entitled to it.
Yeah. That's so cool. And then from an orchestrator perspective, the orchestrator, as it relates to an itinerary, I look at it as your direction is in alignment with the writer's original vision. So like that God's vision for you, that divine purpose, that remember, your co-created vision, because sometimes I can forget that I co-created this vision. It sometimes
That's
gets
a
out of my
challenging
consciousness.
concept for a lot of people to embrace. And some people, somebody was saying to me Saturday that I'm still working with the idea that we chose this and that somebody would choose what appears to be a painful experience or an abusive experience. Why would somebody choose it? Is because we're still thinking of ourselves as human beings as opposed to spiritual beings that are taking on this human form. And so whatever's happening with this human form is not all that there is, that I'm a spiritual being moving through the embodiment of this human form for my soul's growth and unfoldment. But I'm not limited to the physicality of who I am, that I'm not a man, I'm not a woman, I'm not a boy, I'm not a girl, I'm an idea from the mind of God. I'm the word that is taken on this flesh for a higher purpose and a bigger plan. So I know lots of people that really struggle with that, which is a foundational teaching in kingdom.
Yep.
Anybody struggling with that idea? Because I know people struggle with that.
May I? This is Cherie. Along those lines, I have a friend that always talks about favor. Well, if God favors me, and my question always to her is, why wouldn't God favor you? And for me, I know being a Buddhist kind of helped in my mindset in those terms of divine purpose and those kinds of things. But when people come to me and ask me, and they're thinking along those lines of, God's favor, and it goes back to what you were saying a little bit ago, I'm kind of at a loss because, I talk about the divine principles, those kinds of things. And is it just a matter of they've got to get to where they need to get to on their own?
One of the things that Katie says in Lessons of Truth, that you cannot reveal God to people.
No.
That God has to reveal God's self to people. So you can share your story, you can share your experiences, you can share the principles, but it's information until they have a revelation of who God is personally to themselves.
Okay.
And so you share and then you release and let it go, but they still need to have their personal experience. And I think it's Katie that talks about intellectual understanding versus spiritual understanding. And some of us, we get this stuff intellectually, but that spiritual understanding of God revealing it to us and it resonating completely with our spirit, soul, and body is a constant unfolding.
Yes. Mark, did you have something to say, or were you just raising your hand as one person that's still working with it?
Yeah, I think I might have been the person on Saturday that talked about.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm still wrestling with it. I'm still trying to get my arms around how, different people go through life with such challenges. And I'm talking about, some really bizarre challenges that people go through. And that they signed up for it. And, Dr. Pulley then said exactly what he just said. He said, that's the body, not the spirit, or not the soul. And the soul is learning from that and has signed up to that to learn about that way of life. And so I still wrestle with that, and I still try to work through it in my mind and.
What helped me and what I've said that helped other people is when I think about the civil rights movement and how people knew that they could be killed, they knew that they could be spit on, that they could be beat, that the dogs, could bite them, and yet they signed up for it. They were trained that once one group of people were hosed and whipped and beat and carried out, that the next group just came right in, with the same, and it's like they knew what was going to happen. They were prepared to go to jail, to be killed, to be whipped, to be beat, and in a conscious level, they said there's a bigger purpose here, there's a higher plan here, and they volunteered for that. So that helped me to say, if people can find consciously a bigger purpose and a higher plan that they believe in, that they would sacrifice and give up some things so that other people, and there might be change in the earth, then why are we not able to do this on a super conscious level? Does that make any sense, Mark?
Yeah, I just think about the gentleman that got shot 7 times 2 days ago, and how he signed up for that, and he was out trying to break up a fight or a dispute between 2 people, and suddenly he's paralyzed. So we pray for him. Hopefully he can work through that and not be paralyzed, and maybe he'll carry a banner that will, evoke other people to do other things, much like George Floyd has done. So, and maybe he has signed up for that. It just seems like a very strange way to do your purpose.
Yeah, it's a big concept. It's a big idea.
Yes.
But
And
isn't that
also the belief in multiple lifetimes helps me with that too.
Yeah.
That this life and this experience is not all that there is, that the soul is constantly growing and unfolding. So all those things kind of help me, because I didn't wake up like this. When I first was introduced to this teacher, I was like, what? Are you kidding me? Especially after 911, I think that was close to the time when I was introduced to the idea. And I was like, you mean all of those thousands of people signed up for that? So I can relate to having to work with that idea and it not just being You
Right.
know, that it is a
No,
book.
and that's
forward.
something I've learned, since being here is I'm really working, with Robin too, reading about Buddhism and reading about, the different religions and just getting a better perspective that, this isn't the only life. There are different lives we're going to go through, our soul will go through. And so it's the people that aren't recognized. It's the people that die on the street from an overdose, and they're not even known who they are. They take them to the morgue, and like, what was the purpose for them to go through that? Because some of the deaths that we're seeing, I believe, are for enlightenment for others. So I can see how that purpose was served. It's for other people that really don't, are really anonymous, and why did they sign up for that? But I'm learning, I'm evolving, and so I think, I plug into these weekly Bible studies, because it's definitely a different Bible study than I practiced before.
Yeah.
I'd like to, if I may jump
Mama's
in,
Bible study.
Hang on,
may I
hang on.
jump in
Isn't
for
that-
just a moment from a former Buddhist, in that we never know what a life is for, why we choose to be, have multiple handicaps and poor in Bangladesh. Why would we choose to be born in those circumstances? But we know about divine purpose. And even though in our mind and in our understandings, we may just see random anonymous people dying and suffering, we don't know what their long-term effects are. So every life has value, every life has a purpose. And I'm with you. There are times it's like, Lord, what is this about? This does not make sense. But
doesn't
that's
that
when faith comes in.
but
Shepherd
doesn't
Mother?
that broaden our definition of unique?
Absolutely.
Individuality,
Oh, yeah.
You know, because
Absolutely.
when we say we are unique individuals, I don't know if we take it as far as it goes.
Mm.
That the word unique is a very, very powerful word,
Mhm.
which covers things that we might even look at and think are impossible, but there's a unique human being that can do that.
Mhm.
Even those shows that come on where the people are being strong and jumping from one thing to another and crawling up on stuff, it's like, what? But that's the uniqueness of it. And
Yeah.
so when we say that we are unique individuals, the uniqueness is what covers all of the spectrums of everything that goes on, that we might look at and say, that's impossible. But that's a unique person.
Yeah.
Mm.
And that's part of their purpose, to have that uniqueness.
Yeah. Patrick, did you have something to share?
I just wanted to answer Dr. Puller's original question. I was one of those people that got it intellectually, like I understood when I first kind of stepped into New Thought and these concepts and things. I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. 1 + 1 is 2. I get it. I got it, but I didn't. I wasn't grasping it at a spiritual level until I started really being challenged with some things where I had to experience my purpose and the order and all the things. And I legit was like, how is this what I signed up for? I was just like, what is going on? I legit was like, this doesn't make any sense. And I just had to sit back and after I got through it, I realized that the only way for me to get where I am, even where I am now, was because of that. I legit would not be in this building had I not gone through the XYZ experiences. So it was predetermined, because that formula had to happen to get to the next part of the equation. That's the only way to solve the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, so I remember when I was working with this concept with Dr. Pulley early on, because I too was one of those, okay, I get it intellectually, but I still don't get it. I hadn't aligned all the pieces of my soul, right? And so I can remember, and I think it was Dr. Pulley that said this to me. He said, I knew it was, that an individual may come here to have suffering, to experience pain, to experience the overdose, some of those kind of things, because that's what they needed to learn in this lifetime. So when they come back in the next one, they know what the contrast is, which is health, right? And so now they can come back and be a healer because they had to have the experience for themselves in that moment to come back to do what is theirs to do that they really did agree on long term, that is more positive, right? And so that was like, oh, okay, then I can now better relate to those things that appear on the surface to be negative, to be suffering for those individuals. And it was what they needed to go to the higher plane of what's next. So that really helped me shift from labeling things, because I don't know if it's bad or not, right? And that's the whole point, I think, what Shepherd Mother was talking about. And it's not mine to judge whether that's bad or not. That's actually probably a really good thing for them. But we as society, we as humans have interpreted that as bad. So that's one of the things that helped me shift dramatically from my intellect into, ooh, wow, I could connect with that at a deeper spirit level.
It's like that Buddhist story, good news, bad news. The one about everyone knows it, right? About the horse runs away and it goes on and on and on. Good news, bad news, just simply is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, if I can remember that in the midst of my trying to control the outcome, boy, it's almost like oh, I don't have to do this.
Yeah.
This is not mine to do. And I don't even need to know why, because that's not my job. I'm not the divine orchestrator. I just have to worry about my little instrument here.
Yes. It immediately disinfects it in a hot second.
It does.
It vaporizes it just like that. I mean, it's just amazing because it can transform it in a hot second. I can pull myself out of being like either in my pity party or frustrated with the person that's having the experience, and it'll pull me out in a hot second. So yes, now it's just conducting, it's orchestrating to get those pieces to align at that time, right? Because that's that getting, coming back to that vision and getting them to line more quickly. So those are all beautiful expressions of conducting. I think, was it Patty, did you want to share?
Yeah, I'm just, it almost seems like it's easier if you keep in mind about divine vision or divine purpose, not purpose. I was trying to word it out in my head before I unmuted myself, but like if you know the big goal, you know the big vision.
Yep.
Then as you go through stuff, you can kind of look at it as, if you're in divine mind, then everything, and then you don't, I guess, take things personal, I think. You know what I mean? Then everything is a lesson, I guess.
Yep.
Everything's
a lesson. Yep.
Everything's a lesson and a blessing.
100%.
So I guess, and I think, I don't think that way anymore, but I think where people get stuck is it's like, this is, they think this is all there is.
Yeah.
And they don't have the goal. I mean, they don't have the vision.
So that's connected with that spiritual side of them, that there is something higher than what they can physically see or feel in this body.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So I feel like I have that in my life now. So that's really huge.
Yeah, it's huge. And it's a matter of, just as we were saying, how quickly can we tap into it? Because we're still in this body. If we're still in this body, we're still going to have those human moments. So It's just how quickly we can shift out of it that takes us to the next level.
Right.
Is the cool part. So, and then I think Patrick was it Patrick you were talking about the investment? Was it you talking about? No, it was Colette talking about the investment. So, the conductor orchestrates life based on your investment as conductor. That's what we do. The orchestrator transforms the vision into reality based on your investment of your time, talent, and treasure. So, you know, as an orchestrator, you're choosing which things, where to place your time, where to place your treasure, where to place your talent or not. And in that space of doing that, if you look at it that way, you are orchestrating and turning the vision into reality. Now, the question is, whose vision are you turning into reality? The lesser vision or the higher vision? And so that's a way to do that. And then it kind of is that you reap what you sow concept, right? As far as orchestrator. And then we talked about improvements, and, you know, Shepherd Mother, you always bring up such great insights. This is my life. This is what I do for business in general. I always ask, how can I make it better? How can I make it better? How can I make it? It's not even better. How can I make it higher? How can I make it more successful for the greater good? That's where my focus is. And that's why I love the concept of the conductor, just like you, because they're saying, how can I make your experience
Yes.
better, right? How can I improve your experience?
Yes.
It's not just about the result. It's about how can I improve
The experience itself.
The experience is all of it. To me, the
Yes.
experience is all
Yes.
aspects of the soul, right? Your thoughts, your feelings, your choices, and your learned perception, like everything. How can I make the whole package better to get you to that ultimate experience, which is spirit, love, bliss, whatever we want to call it, right? So that really resonated with me. That was really
So it's
awesome.
not just a better destination, it's a better journey. You know,
Yes.
It's better
how can I make this
everything.
road, we
Yeah.
know we're going to end up at good, but how
Yeah.
can I make the travel, the journey to that good? How can I make that experience, like you said, better also means higher. How can I make it better? How can I make this a better experience for you?
Even in the midst of what might feel uncomfortable, how can I make it better? And so, you know, if I sometimes get in a space of, well, I don't like it, and a pity party or whatever, it's like, oh, okay, well, let me ask this question. How can I make it better? Because it'll shift. That's another one of those shifting questions.
Yes.
Because as soon as you ask yourself that question, how can I make it
You
better?
gotta do something.
All of a sudden, you can't stay there anymore.
That's right. You gotta move.
It doesn't work that way. It's not possible. So I really resonated with that. And then, of course, I think Robin kind of tipped the hand on this whole thing on the 1030 message, because it's really talking now, we're shifting into the conductors of the orchestra, of the people that are pulling all of the pieces together, creating this beautiful symphony and these harmonies, and taking what appear sometimes to be instruments or tones or even people that would appear not to be able to sound good. I mean, if you've ever listened to an orchestra rehearse, you're like, oh, good gosh, this is awful. It's just like a bunch of instruments going in 52 different directions. And then when the conductor comes out, he's putting all of it together so it sounds so beautiful, and telling people when to come in and when to move out and whatever else he's doing up there with his hands and his baton. And so it's really cool. So I loved how you taught, Dr. Pulley, about it's teaching the music. And what I liken that to is teaching the music also so everybody's on the same song sheet. Because if you're not on, look, and I liken that to the parts of the soul, because if all my parts of the soul aren't on the same song sheet, we're not going together. We're not going to get there as fast, and it's not going to be as beautiful. And that's okay. There's a time and a place. There's a time and a place for trial and error, right? And so I think that it's really helping everybody understand their role, teaching it so we understand our roles. And then as that verbiage of orchestrator, I loved that definition of transposing an original song to ensure all the instruments and voices can learn to apply the music. So it's really saying, okay, well, I'm going to take that divine purpose, and now I'm going to know how to take all those instruments and transpose it enough to be able to put it out into application. And that's what we talk about all the time, is application. So anything in particular on the teach the music concept, Dr. Pulley, you want to share, or anybody else want to add?
When I look at teach the music, it's a contrast between 1 and 2. It's like to teach the music is just to go through it the first time, to give the background, to give the composers intention, to teach it, to go over it, and like an overview, teach the music, and then break it down into the trial and error, which is the practice. Okay, I know how it's supposed to go. I've been given an overview of what it is to sound like. Now let's get to that particular point through trial and error. And often that's why they're called spiritual practices or kingdom practices, because it is practice. It is a practice. And I heard us talking about, you know, I don't stay there as long in that negative place. It's not intense as it was. I don't stay, and I'm able to recognize it more quickly. And so that's as a result of practice, practice, practice. These spiritual practices cause us to grow and expand in our consciousness so that we are able to give ourselves permission to practice, to play, to rehearse, and to be okay with the trial and error, that it is a process of practice.
Yes, I love that. And definitely the trial and error. I mean, that's how we learn best. As far as I know,
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the way I learn. If I don't try it, then how do I know what's going to
You
happen?
know,
I have no idea. Sometimes I think I can out trick it and not try it and it's going to be okay, but that's not how it works. So we have to try it and it's okay. I think the whole thing about trial and error is, I think sometimes it's okay. We think, okay, I'll try it, but I'm not real happy if it doesn't turn out with no, like, I don't want the error part. I want to do the trial part, but I don't want to kind of skip the error part because we think, ooh, what do I do? It's that perfectionist that wants to come out, right? Which we know is not, I mean, we know the spirit is perfect, whole, and complete. And then the perfection is getting in alignment with that. It's just that the ego side of us thinks that we can't make mistakes. Well, it's only in the mistakes that you actually learn. It's in the so-called failures that you get the feedback to know how to do it differently the next time.
I said
I'm
today,
experiencing that right
perfection-
now.
Yeah. Sorry, Robin, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, perfection is not a principle.
That's exactly right. I love that. So, Shepherd Mother, what did you say?
No, I was just saying I'm experiencing that right now. I'm learning something new that I looked at as, well, it's just a piece of cake. I can just do this and I can just do that. And to realize that there are pieces in there that I miss. And I'm getting it through trial and error by doing it and then saying, nope, that's not how you do that. You know, and so it makes a difference, and it's okay. And that has to do a lot with ego, because in ego, we feel like, oh, well, this is something that we can do. I've done it for years. And then it comes and you're doing it and it's just not going like I expected. And it's like, God, I can't believe I'm doing it like that. But then to come back and say, you know what? This is trial and error. And once I get through this part of it, piece of cake, that's the piece of cake. You got to bake the thing first. You can't
Come on.
you can't just get the cake. You got to put the pieces together. You got to
Yes.
mix it up. You got to put it in the oven. You got to let it bake. You got to do all that before you get to the cake.
Yeah.
So,
But sometimes I just want to get to the cake.
Yeah, it's just like we think we can get on a bike and ride it the first time.
Just
well,
right.
You know what? You got to fall down a couple of times to figure out
That's
how
right.
it works.
That's right.
to learn the balance.
To learn the balance.
Because
Yeah.
that's what you're doing.
Yes.
You're balancing your weight on the bike.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, this one, you know, and I think that I think back to, and this is why I think this was so powerful, because you can think back if you've ever been to a symphony, you know, and you hear a symphony rehearsal or anything like that, the conductor is listening for those areas of disharmony where things are, the dissonance and the disharmony where things aren't working together. And it's like, okay, what did I hear? What do we need to tweak to make that better? And and then, you know, even if the musicians have been playing for a while, they can hear it too, and they can self-correct. And so I think that's just the same thing. It's like the disharmony. When we're feeling disharmony in our life, instead of labeling it bad, we look and say, oh, that's just a sign that says something's not working. So what do I need to shift? What is out of alignment? So anytime that we're feeling disharmony in our life, it just means that one piece of our soul's not aligned. So go figure out what piece it is and work on it, and let's move
Fix
through
it.
Yeah. Anything else on trial and error, Dr. Pulley?
No.
Awesome. And then timing and tempo. It's just beautiful. So as conductors, we direct the timing and tempo of the instruments, knowing things when they're supposed to come in, how fast they're supposed to play, how loud they're supposed to play, all the stuff. And then I think an orchestrator, it was talking about the orchestrators tweaking that original version to allow a diverse audience to hear. And I think this is the one you were talking about, the diverse audiences, how the tempos and the different things have changed. I mean, even look, so much music originated from the same place. A lot of music originated from the same place, right? But then through generations, people have tweaked the tempo, people have tweaked the timing to call to whatever audience that, you know, you're playing to at that point in time. And so it's kind of that evolution that I believe that we do as we're developing our soul and unfolding into the consciousness to know how to tweak that timing. Because some things are going to be going faster than others. Sometimes they need to go at that different pace, sometimes go in a different timing. So I really like that. And I know you have other things to share on this one, Dr. Pulley, I'm sure.
I mean, there really is no time. It's really about consciousness, and it's when that consciousness comes into alignment that we experience the manifestation. It's like when all the parts of the orchestra come together, everybody knows their part. It's just such a flow. It's such a flow. It flows effortlessly because everything is in alignment. So timing is really about alignment. It's about everything being balanced and together that causes the timing and the tempo because everything is aligned. And that's the divine timing, however long it takes for us to come into that full, complete, and total alignment with the will, the purpose, the plan of God. That's the timing. I'm orchestrating how long it's going to take me to get into alignment, and I get to decide how long. When I was first telling people, you get to decide how long you're going to be depressed about that. You get to decide how long you're going to be angry about that. You get to decide how long you're going to be bitter about that. So I would work with clients and say, okay, how much energy, how much time are you going to give this? We're going to give this a week, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, a year. How long are we going to, how long do you desire to be angry about it? They would look like, what do you mean? I said, you get to choose. These are your emotions. These are your thoughts. These are your feelings. You get to decide how long you are going to be in this place. But many times we think of our thoughts and feelings and emotions and intellect and those learned perceptions and like it's something outside of us that's making us feel this way, and we're just victims of it, and we have no control over it. And it's like when you understand that I am the conductor, I am the orchestrator, that I get to decide how long I'm going to be angry, how long I'm going to be bitter, how long I'm going to be mad, how long I'm going to complain. I get to decide how much time out of my life I'm going to give this argument, how much I get to decide the timing.
Yeah.
And that's what being a conductor is. You decide how much time you're going to give this.
Yep. That's awesome. I love that. Any other comments from anyone on the kind of the 1030 message? Anyone else? All right. Yeah, go ahead, Patrick. Oh, wait, who is that? Bootsy, go ahead.
I just have a question. The question will be, so is God the orchestrator and we're the conductor? we're doing both of those?
Both.
That's what I'm getting kind of confused.
So
So-
I see it as, but I see God as the original conductor, the original orchestrator.
Okay, so.
And then I am in co-creation with God. I am also the orchestrator and conductor. That's how I was seeing it. Dr. Pulley, I'm sure you have some other insight into
So what I invited people to see is that God, the conductor or the orchestrator did not make the instruments.
that. Mhm.
The conductor or the orchestrator did not write the music. That this was written and they are in alignment with music that someone else wrote, but then they're interpreting it, hearing it, and bringing it together into a physical reality. So I see God as the composer of the score. I see God as the creator of the instruments. And then I see us as the conductor and orchestrator.
Okay,
Does that make sense, Bootsy?
yes, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, because remember, the conductor is interpreting the original composer's idea about this music. And so God is divine mind, where the idea comes from. So I see the creator of the instruments and the composer of the music as God, and then us being the conductor of our understanding where we are in consciousness to be able to bring that into expression.
Okay.
So that brings up a question for me, to add on to what Bootsy was asking. So in that instance, and I hear that God's the composer, the original writer, all of that kind of stuff, the original creator. So as co-creator, what does that look like?
Co-creator is because God is not moving the baton. God is not telling me how to interpret the music or how to get this music across to all of these instrumentalists. That's on me.
Musicians.
That's on me to, based upon my consciousness and my understanding, to interpret that and to get that across and to cause that to be expressed in a harmonious way. So the conductor is co-creating with the composer because that has to work in harmony.
Yeah.
So that's where.
So it's like one is and you've said this before, and I think I'm just hearing it in a different way now. So God is the architect and we're the implementers, we're the builders.
Exactly. And I think another one we use is that God is piano, and then we're playing the keys.
Yeah.
That God is television, but we are pressing the buttons and what channel and the volume, but God is television, but the remote control is in our hands to determine what we look at and how it sounds and what we see.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's helping me a lot better because it takes me back to Genesis of in the garden, he gave us everything. So now I'm the conductor and the orchestrator, and I'm the one that's kind of moving the parts in there and manifesting and using it to produce more seed.
Exactly.
Right? Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and that's interesting because I just got an insight because sometimes I think co-creator, I think I was also the writer. And so so that's just another question that's coming up now. So that's an amazing question, Bootsy, because it's making me think. So when we're talking about that original, even back to the conversation we were today talking about, when we're talking about the original co-creation of our purpose, is it that we were there at the beginning? Or is it just that we were there agreeing to, yes, I see that I'm going to agree to create this plan by implementing this plan? Does that make sense?
So remember, God is divine mind,
right?
And we're the idea. So the mind creates the idea, and the idea brings about the manifestation.
Yeah.
So we didn't come up with the idea by ourselves.
Right.
That God is divine mind that came up with the idea, and then us being the idea, then we manifest, we agree, because it's like with the conductor. You can be given a sheet of music and you're like, I don't want to play that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to play that. I'm not going to learn that. I'm not going to teach that. So the co-creation is that I receive this score, I interpret this score, and I work with the original idea of the composer to make this music, that I'm in agreement with bringing this into expression.
You're in agreement with bringing it into expression. That's the agreement we made.
Exactly.
That we said, oh yeah, okay, I'm signing up for that. I'm good for that.
Yes.
Got it. That's a great question, because that even gave me some clarification, Bootsy, as well. So thank you. And
I have a question.
Yes, please.
What if you get stuck? Like you were saying, like if you're writing, what if you get writer's block? Do you go into the silence? I'm thinking you would go into the silence and have to meditate on it for a while, but I don't know if that's
absolutely right. Whatever spiritual practice is going to help you become unstuck,
That's
you
the
know,
one.
that's the one that works for you. For some people, and I think that's what the messages are about this Sunday, is using the spiritual practices that help you to be able to be unstuck and to keep in the flow and in the harmony, and which ones work for you.
so
Absolutely.
there's not necessarily a right or wrong way.
No, it's what's the effective way. What's the effective way for you?
And what works best for you.
And what works best for you?
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
great
you.
question. Great question. So Dr. Pulley, I desire for you to take the view from here, because I'm confident you'll share far more insights than I will.
So I really, this part is that this is really the leadership part of the lesson, is to realize that everybody is not looking at the vision of the church, the mission of the church, the identity of the church, the business of the church in the same way. That even if you're in a company, there's the president's view, there's the executive view, there's the employee's view, there's the customer view, that everybody is not looking at it from the same vantage point. And so being a leader, being an orchestrator, is realizing that different people have different points of view, and to be able to work with that, realizing that everybody is not seeing it from the same perspective, but yet all perspectives are to be honored. That's the real intention behind the set, the stage, the seats, is to realize that everybody is not looking at it from, that was the issue with Moses. He was on the mountain, God gave him this vision, God gave him these commandments, he brought it down, and the people, they didn't have his perspective. They didn't see this promised land that he saw. And so being an effective leader is realizing that different people on your team have different perspectives, and you are bringing those perspectives together. That's the real intention behind the view from here, is to realize that there's multiple views of people looking at in the same place at the same time, but having a different experience based upon the view. That was the real intention from behind the message.
Yeah, and I think that that's where the real influence comes in, is that when you as a leader are very clear in your vantage point and your perspective, that's fantastic. That's part of it, right? Because if you're not clear in yours, then good luck being clear on anybody else's. And then being open to either be aware or ask questions so you can be aware what other people's here is, right? So it's like, instead of just thinking everybody's at your here, just like you said, make sure that you understand what their here looks like. Because if you don't understand what their here looks like, you're thinking they're going in the same direction, and they're not. They're going in their direction.
They're not even seeing it.
They're not seeing
even
where you're heading at all.
At all. And so that's the real leadership in terms of the practical leadership piece as we're developing leaders, is that people on your team are coming from different perspectives. And it's not right, it's not wrong. It's just that they're different perspectives. And to bring all of those perspectives together without judgment, without making one right and one wrong, one better, higher, but they're just different perspectives.
And you're
And to be
still the
able to hear
conductor.
all of, yes,
You're
as
still
a
a
leader,
conductor. You have to
you're
hear
still
it.
conducting. You got to hear all those perspectives and be able to embrace all those perspectives and be able to still allow the song to move forward.
Yep. And know how to direct it and orchestrate it so now everybody's in harmony, even when there'll be some instruments that might be a little bit out of tune. You got to help them figure out how to get back in tune.
Because sometimes there may be a quote unquote mistake that's happening on stage, but in the nosebleed seats, they don't know what did that happen. You know what happened. You're looking at the score. You know that was off, but the audience does not know the score, the music. They are just kind of, their view is different. And so it's important to as a leader, as you grow in consciousness, the more you're able to embrace and manage different perspectives. If everybody has to see it your way, do it your way, say it your way, understand it your way, you're really limiting yourself as a leader. And so I'm always inviting different perspectives, different views, trying different things, because I realize that all of this is God.
You know, Dr. Pulley, that even aligned. I mean, I've had that same experience just even within my 4 aspects of my soul. Like my thoughts can have a different perspective than my feelings, than my learned perceptions, than my choices. So like, even from that perspective, if I take it and just internalize it as, you know, leading myself into the highest and best and my soul's unfoldment, it's understanding that I got to look at all the perspectives of all the parts of my soul, because they're not like, they could even be in disharmony. And I know you've helped me see that sometimes, where I thought, oh, well, because my thoughts are aligned, then my feelings and everything else should just align with it. Well, that's not true. So even the aspects inside of us have different perspectives.
Exactly.
So yeah, awesome. Anybody have any extra special things they want to say on this part of the message? It's just all about different vantage points and really being aware. That's awesome. Okay, so this week, like we do every week, we just invite you to kind of pay attention, to work with this concept of orchestrator, both from a conductor viewpoint and an orchestrator viewpoint, whatever works best for you, whatever resonates with you, and just see what shows up. Pay attention, see what shows up. That's the beauty. Go out and practice it, be aware of it, and see how it influences and what you pull on to implement the best and highest and best for yourself. So Dr. Pulley, I'll leave it to you for final words.
Yes. Thank you so much, Gina.
That was fast.
It was fast. It's 8. It's 8:20.
God.
I'm just glad that people are actively participating and enjoying. Some people have already started giving. If you haven't given, you can give on our Givelify app. I think everybody here knows all the different ways that they're able to give. And so let's just take a moment to come together and to know the truth of abundance. To know that good flows to me bountifully. I receive it gratefully. I give it cheerfully, and more good comes back to me. It's in the name and through the power and in the consciousness of Christ Jesus that it is so, and so it is, and so we let it be. Amen and amen. Thank you for your faithful giving of your tithes and your offerings. This Saturday night, it's not Friday night, it's Saturday night, we're having a comedy show.
Poetry show.
A poetry show.
Is it going to be comic?
It's going to be poetry. And some of it's going to be funny because I'm one of the poets. So it's going to be funny. And we got Mark Clark. We got Najida. Who else we got, Patrick?
Christine is performing. I think I am.
Yes. When they said it was going to be on Facebook, I said, "Oh, let me get my clean poems on," because I had some.
Oh my,
I had
thank
some
you.
ratchet. I had some
Thank
ratchet.
you.
Oh,
I
you
had
want
some
something to go,
ratchet
you
poems.
want something to go through like Facebook on fire. You could just bring out those like,
I was like, "Oh no!"
That was
Once they
during
said,
Let
that
once
me
was
they
tell
during
said
your
it was going to
riotous
be on
time.
Facebook, I was like, "Oh no!" I'm bringing all my clean stuff out.
That
Yes.
other was during your riotous time.
Now,
Woo,
hey,
yes.
now, did Spirit guide you to share that? You want to stick with that initial hit? Do you now?
For today's people.
Yes.
What
So,
is it? What is it, Dr. Pulley? 3 no Trump, 4 no Trump. What is that one?
I'm gonna bring some ones out, but I won't bring out the ones that are as risque.
Well, you know, those are the ones I want to hear. I want to
Okay,
hear what
well,
you
we have
got.
to have a private
We have
one.
to have another one.